So I want to start with a story about a company I was running about 20 years ago. I was in San Diego, and you see here a gloomy picture of San Diego. It's the only cloudy day, I think, in San Diego's history. But about 20 years ago, I was running this company. I'm driving into work one day, and I got a voicemail from our CFO. She said she's not going to be in the office today. And over the course of the next several hours, we discovered why. She had embezzled several $100,000. By the end of that day, we realized we were bankrupt. Our investors lost all their money. We had to lay off a substantial part of our team with no severance. Ultimately, we were able to sell the business. But as a team, we gathered at the end of that horrible day, the worst day of my business career. We gathered around the table, and we said we resolved to do one thing. We were going to learn from this experience. And it's those lessons from that day and some others along the way I want to share with you. First is about team. Team, this is the most important thing that you do. Pick the right team members. You have to hire the team for the company you want to be, not who you are today. You have to imagine the company you want to become, and that's the team you have to hire. At Adaptive Insights, when I joined, we had to replace most of the senior team. We were about $40 million in revenue. And by design, we went and tried to hire a team that could run a $500 million business. That's what we wanted to become. That was our vision. The second thing about team is we know we have to hire for skills and we have to hire for culture. And culture is the one that really counts. Skills has to be above the bar. Culture is the most important aspect of hiring a team. We did a CFO search, it took us 9 months. We did a CRO search, it took us 12 months. We found people with the right skills, but ultimately we wouldn't settle for a compromise on culture. And I think that was absolutely the right decision. If you think about it, you can backfill skills, you can augment that, you can't fix culture. If culture's wrong, it can't be corrected. Second area I want to talk about is funding. And there are 3 principles in funding. You have to do it at the right time, you have to have the right partner, and you've got to do it at the right valuation. Timing is just a little bit before you need the money, ideally. And I think most of you know that. The partner and the value that the right financial partner brings, I think, is obvious. Valuation is the tricky one, because what I see, both as a venture investor and as an entrepreneur, is everybody's trying to get the highest valuation. And I would submit to you that funding at a valuation that's too high is just as problematic as funding at a valuation that's too low. If it's too low, you take more dilution. If it's too high, what you do is you work really, really hard for a couple of years to grow into that valuation. Your option prices are too high. You have motivation issues with the team. Look at the unicorns that are scrambling to figure out how they get the next round of liquidity. So be thoughtful about the valuation, and it isn't always about the highest price. Culture. So culture, we all know, is one of the most essential parts of building a great company. So trust, I think, is the most important element in culture. And you can't have trust without absolute transparency. I hear CEOs, I hear leaders say, boy, we can't really share this with the team. Guess what? The only people that you're spinning is yourselves. Your team knows the reality of what's happening in the business. When you lay out tough problems, when you put those in front of the team, they will respond to those challenges far better than we often think. There's a great story during World War II in London. During the bombings in London, they were really concerned about the impact on the children. So they moved a substantial number of children outside the city. After the war, they discovered that the children who remained in the city and experienced the bombing fared far better. Present the hard realities, and your team will have the resilience to deal with it. Innovation is a core part of the culture. The other thing that, and if we don't innovate, we know this, if we don't innovate, unless we're constantly changing, we can't build a successful business. The other thing I find, and I really, really believe in, is a learning culture. We have to take risks. We have to be prepared to fail sometimes and learn from those mistakes. So we can't fear failure. I think if there's any lesson I learned from the experience in San Diego, it was that one. But there's a flip side of that. You can't fear success either. You have to embrace it. Too often, I see teams not being willing to commit themselves, not being willing to embrace that success. And I think that's just as challenging in terms of building your culture as a fear of failure. Setting goals is tricky. I was reading last night Measure What Matters by John Doerr, and he actually had this exact quote as I was reading it on the airplane coming here last night. Set aggressive but realistic goals. Aggressive because research shows that if we set more aggressive goals, our outcomes are going to be better. Realistic because we want to build a winning culture. You can't have a culture inside companies where people feel that they're not winning. This is a tricky part. As leaders, setting the right level of stretch in our goals and being able to attain those, that's an essential part of what we do as leaders. So many years ago, I had the good fortune to be exposed to the very first spreadsheet. It was something called VisiCalc. It's on the wall over at the JetBlue terminal, on the innovation wall over there. And it had been out for about a month. It ran on an Apple II. By the way, there's more processing power in this watch than there was in that computer. And I had the opportunity to go in and teach myself VisiCalc. So I went into our office. It was at 60 State Street. And I spent a Saturday going through and teaching myself VisiCalc. And at the end of about 7 or 8 hours, I stood up, looked out the window, looked down at Faneuil Hall, and I said, this is going to change the world. It's going to change everything I know about business. And for the rest of my career, that connection to that vision, it gave me purpose for the rest of my career. And the same is true of your teams. Vision and purpose is the most important thing you provide as leaders. The alignment of what we as individuals want to do with what our business can become is your most important job. Continuing to articulate the vision of what you're going to build, allow people to understand how their contribution allows you to change your portion of the world. You can't do this enough. You can't restate the mission and connect people and align people with the vision and the purpose of what you're trying to do in the business. So those are my thoughts that I leave you with. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I hope I get a chance to see many of you over the course of today.